Okay. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the entire Hologic team, a very warm welcome to all of you to today's webinar on breast elastography, which will be presented by Dr. Rupa Ranganathan from India. We're excited to have over 300 delegates currently online who have connected from more than 10 countries across Asia Pacific. So a big thank you to all of you for taking time out from your busy schedules to join us today. So before we kickstart today's session, I request everyone to please keep their lines muted during the entire presentation. In case you have any questions for Dr. Rupa, please feel free to use the chat function and we shall take up your questions during the Q&A session at the end. So without further ado, I would like to invite our Vice President, Ms. Linda Sia, to share a few words and introduce our esteemed speaker for tonight. So over to you, Linda.
With great pleasure for me to introduce our distinguished speaker tonight, Dr. Rupa Ranganathan. She's a senior consultant in the Department of Diagnostic and Interventional Radiology at Kovai Medical Center and Hospital, better known as KMCH in Coimbatore in India since 2007. And she heads up the Breast Center and Division of Women's Imaging since 2013. Dr. Rupa is also a teaching faculty for the DMB program for radiology residents and has been doing so for more than 13 years. And she's also currently for the FNB breast imaging program. Dr. Rupa had done her visiting fellowship and observership for this specialty in the University of San Diego, and that happens also to be where Hologic headquarters is sited, at Harvard University in the United States and University of Toronto, Canada. She is also a life member of the Indian Radiology Association and Breast Imaging Society of India. You could see that the list goes on. She's delivered multiple lectures, and without much further ado, let's have Dr. Rupa.
Thank you, Mr. Sudeep and Ms. Linda, for the kind introduction. For the next 35 to 40 minutes, let's see what is breast elastography about, the basic technique and the clinical applications. Ultrasound and breast imaging has come a long way in history, starting from differentiating a lesion from solid and cystic. And there was a major breakthrough when we started discriminating the lesion as benign or malignant based on the morphological features. And due to recent technological development, we not only started classifying lesion as benign and malignant, but also we started predicting non-invasively the biological subtypes and the molecular subtype of the breast cancer. These are the important people who have contributed a lot to ultrasound and also to elastography. This is Dr. Stavros, who made a breakthrough study in differentiating solid lesions by describing the morphological feature to differentiate between benign and malignant lesions. She is Dr. Berg, who had a breakthrough study, multinational study in elastography, wherein we started looking elastography seriously, and this study has made a differentiation in characterizing the lesion as benign and malignant by laying off certain cutoffs. And he is Dr. Richard Bird, who has got a lot of publications on breast elastography and has contributed a lot of quality innovations in that. Elastography by mean, it is a tissue elasticity or stiffness in vivo, and this is an imaging equivalent of clinical palpation. By adding elastography into morphological features, we were able to characterize the lesion better and hence increases the specificity of our diagnosis. It's also being incorporated in the second edition of Ultrasound Biret's lexicon as soft, intermediate, or hard. As we all know, elastography is of two types. One is compression or strain elastography, and other is a shear wave elastography. So various vendors have different principles when it comes to both strain or shear wave, and we need to understand what technology is being used in our elastography in the system that we use. We'll first see what is strain elastography. Strain or the compression elastography, as the name implies, says the compression is exhibited or the strain is exhibited to the breast or the lesion in particular, either with breathing, contraction, heartbeat, or an external compression through the probe or even a push pulse. What we need to understand that the strain elastography measures the relative stiffness of the lesion compared to the normal parenchyma and not the absolute stiffness. It is expressed either in the grayscale or the color mapping like this. So what really happens is whenever you exhibit a compression or a strain to the lesion, tissue deformation occurs. This is inversely proportional to the stiffness of the material and the response time. Response time by mean the tissue, the time the tissue takes to return to the normal condition. We also have to understand that the technique has to be a very operator dependent to get a good or optimal strain elastography image. One is being under compression has to be on the in plane. The movement of the probe has to be in plane and not out of plane for the lesion under consideration. And we should absolutely have no pre-compression before we start doing the strain elastography technique. So the probe has to be as gentle as possible, and we should avoid a pre-compression which will give us a wrong results. Whenever we evaluate a strain or an elastography image, we also simultaneously look into the B mode features, and the B mode image is also needed for our measurements. So we need to, first and foremost, we need to get the best B mode image. And as I mentioned previously, you need to keep the probe perpendicular to the skin and the target. And we need to have a clear understanding of the maneuver of the system that we use. Some system may have gentle vibration, some can have no compression, some can have an optimal compression. So we need to understand what is required in our system to give a good elastography image. What do we look in strain elastography? There are three parameters that we look for interpretation. The first being the EB ratio, the second is the color scale, and the third is lesion to fat ratio or the strain ratio. Let's see one after the other. EB ratio by mean, E is the elastography and B is the B mode image. And what it's very simple, we take a measurement in the elastography image and also in the B mode image, and the ratio is being calculated. So how do we interpret the ratio? Whenever the ratio is less than 1, it's benign, and whenever it's more than 1, the lesion under consideration is malignant. When it comes to color score, there is a 5-point color score. So the score 1 is completely deformable, so we interpret as soft, and score 2 is majority of the lesion is deformable with little stiffer areas as seen in this picture. Score 3 is a stiffer center with a deformable periphery, and score 4 is completely stiff, and score 5, not only the lesion but the surrounding area becomes stiffer. So the difference between 4 and 5 is 4, the lesion is completely stiff, so both may appear of same size. But when it comes to score 5, not only the lesion but also the surrounding tissue, so the lesion appears apparently bigger and it is interpreted as score 5. So how do we interpret strain elastography with a color scale? You give a negative score when the score is 1. You say it is equivocal when the scores is 2 or 3, and it is suspicious when the score is 4 or 5. So whenever you get a completely blue or a completely hard elastography color, you start interpreting that lesion as suspicious. Strain ratio is a third parameter that we look into, which is the ratio of the average strain within the lesion compared to the contiguous breast tissue. Again, it measures the relative rigidity and not the absolute rigidity of the lesion. As the name says, the malignant lesions are expected to have a higher strain ratio than the benign lesion. So this is an example of a benign strain ratio. So there are several studies which says that this the second ratio, the second ROI, which you keep it in the normal breast parenchyma, can be in the breast fat or also in the subcutaneous fat. So in this case, the ratio is 1. So whenever it is that means the lesion and the surrounding parenchyma or the fat are the same. So the ratio is 1, which means it's a benign lesion. Unlike in this case where you have an elastography score of 7.3, that means the lesion is malignant. So how do we interpret the strain ratio? A benign is considered when the mean ratio is around 2.08, and whenever it is more than 3, you started looking at that lesions are suspicious, and they are clearly malignant when the mean ratio or the strain ratio is 6.28. Let's see what are the practical considerations when we perform an ultrasound. We all know that ultrasound is an operator-dependent technique, and hence Elastography is also to a certain extent an operation dependent technique, and strain is much more operator dependent than the shear wave technique. First and foremost, we need to have a good B mode image, and you always interpret elastography image in the dual mode. That means there should be a B mode and an elastography picture. While you interpret the elastography, you should have a sufficiently larger FOV so that the surrounding normal tissue is included under consideration, so that we can calculate the strain ratio. We should instruct the patient to have a shallow breathing, no talking, and as I already mentioned, there should be absolutely no pre-compression. When you compress before starting the elastography, it is going to have an abnormal results. They are wrong results. So this needs definitely a learning curve to know, identify that how gentle you have to be before you start the elastography. Let's see an example of a strain elastographic technique. This was a 34-year-old lady who came to us for a non-cyclical focal pain, and we identified this lesion had gentle lobulations. But if you look closely, there is one area where the lesion margin is very indistinct. What happened in elastography score, and when I switched on the strain elastography, you can see not only the lesion but also the surrounding tissue had taken up color. So the lesion is apparently bigger in elastography image than on the B mode image. So the EB ratio is more than 1 and the elastography score is 5. So this lesion is clearly suspicious for malignancy. So we went ahead and did a 3D, which also showed these architectural distortion in a very normal appearing lesion on a 2D. But on a 3D, you can see the mammogram-like image, which beautifully depicts the architectural distortion. And we went ahead and did the biopsy and also the mammogram on that patient. So this was the lesion which was seen on ultrasound, just an increased density with architectural distortion on the routine imaging. But on the spot, you can see the coronal image like picture, which shows this architectural distortion very well. So to summarize, what did we see in strain elastography? One, we need to understand that in strain elastography, what we measure is the relative stiffness and not the absolute stiffness of the lesion under consideration. We also learned that there are different techniques in different vendors. So we need to understand our equipment. So to deliver the strain elastography, whether we need to give no compression, vibration, or optimal compression. So it varies from vendor to vendor, that we need to discuss with our vendor and understand what the mission technique is. We also saw that there are 3 parameters to understand what is strain elastography. One being the color score, second is the EB ratio, and third is the strain ratio. We also learned a few practical points, like how to avoid a pre-compression, how to instruct a patient, and where to keep the ROI. Moving on to shear wave elastography, this in addition to all the parameters that the strain can do, this also gives us the quantitative measure of the lesion stiffness. There is no relative. We are measuring the absolute stiffness of the lesion of interest. So the velocity of stiffness is expressed in meter per second or kilopascals, and the scale that we usually have in shear wave elastography extends up to 180 kilopascals. So this is an example of a shear wave image, and we also can have a color map in addition to that during the shear wave image, the B mode, and there is another a way of display of the image where all 3 can also be combined. So what is the principle behind shear wave elastography? We generate a push pulse into the tissue, and a shear wave is generated perpendicular to the ultrasound beam, and from the velocity of this shear wave which traverses through the tissue, the strain or the Young modulus can be estimated. So what really happens is the velocity of the shear wave is proportional to the tissue stiffness. So higher the tissue stiffness and higher we are going to get the velocity, which is displayed as shear wave velocity in meter per second, or the strain modulus, which is expressed in kilopascals. The normal values of shear wave in the breast is the fatty tissue have the value somewhere between 5 and 10, and the breast parenchyma has value between somewhere 30 to 50. Any pathological condition changes the normal breast tissue elasticity, and we will have an elevated tissue elasticity values. So it is also expressed in color scale when it is dark or light blue in these two images. In this image, which is around 0 to 72 kilopascal, it is called negative. And when it is called equivocal when a green color and an orange color appears. So somewhere the elasticity score is between 144, and when you call them as positive when you see these red signals appear, which is way above 144 to 180 kilopascals. And I said this, the scale extends up to 180 kilopascals usually. So when you start seeing this red color, your antenna is up, and you're going to say that you understand that we're dealing with a malignant lesion. So the shear wave parameters, in addition to the color map, we also see the homogeneity of the elasticity. We can get a size ratio like in strain elastography. We also see what happens to the shear of the lesion at elastography. And we can calculate the elasticity ratio like the strain. In addition to all this, what is important is in shear wave elastography is the quantitative elasticity. We measure the quantitative parameters. They are E mean, max, standard deviation, ratio, and the shear wave anisotropy. So this is there are several papers on which parameter have to be given more significance. Earlier on, there were papers which said Emax is significant because Emax is independent of the ROI size, and E mean is influenced by the ROI size that we draw. But the recent paper had said that integration of these three parameters to come to a conclusion has grossly increased the specificity of our diagnosis or characterizing the lesion as benign or malignant. So we look into the Emax, the E ratio, and the E mean of this. So this is a normal breast parenchyma, which is completely blue. This is a clearly benign lesion. So if you see, the mean is 12, the max is 17.7, the standard deviation is 2.3. And when you draw a ratio, by drawing an ROI within the lesion and outside the lesion, you measure the elasticity ratio, the shear wave ratio, which is displayed here. So this is clearly a benign lesion, and this is clearly a malignant lesion. So if you see, the mean value is 282 and the maximum goes up to 300. So we know that we are dealing with a very highly malignant lesion in this case. The other important thing that we encounter when we are performing a shear wave elastography is something called the lesion doesn't take up the color much, and you see like a void, but the periphery of the lesion shows a lot of color uptake in the elastography color map. So what happens is, why do we get, and this is described as something called stiff rim sign, which is very specific for malignancy. Why it happens? Because that the rim is showing a high elastography score because of the desmoplastic reaction and the attenuation of energy by the shear wave by the peritumoral region, and hence we see a hollow in the center and a good the color map is so well displayed in the periphery of the lesion. So that is, we call it as a stiff rim sign. And the studies have said that up to 65% of malignant lesions display stiff rim sign when you perform a shear wave elastography. So that another component in shear wave is the 3D elastography, which is very important because when you perform a 2D imaging, we need to know that we need to do it in both the plane. Sometimes one plane, the lesion may appear so soft, but if you turn around the exact orthogonal plane, we may find the elasticity score is much higher. That of operator dependence is highly eliminated when we perform a 3D elastography. And there are a lot of studies, interesting studies on 3D elastography with several clinical applications, which we will be discussing in the following slides. So this is also displayed as a tomographic slice image, and you can see the elastography distribution, which part is very hard in treating all the three planes. And it is very easy to target those areas so that we get a good histopathological report. The other one in shear wave is something called the real-time elastography. So if you see, this is a very advanced technique wherein you can actually move the probe and simultaneously acquire the elastography. So if you come towards this area, which is actually was a calcified DCS. Again, this was a young lady who came for a non-specific pain, and when I saw this area, there was definitely this was looking abnormal. So when we switched on the color, the elasto, we knew that there is something definitely abnormal. And you can see that when you move from that hard area to the normal tissue, you can also beautifully see the transition that is happening in the color map. So this is something very interesting, and it will be helpful in assessing the extent of the lesion. And when you have both invasive component and the DCIS component, you can actually map the exact extent. And there are interesting papers on that the elastography also helps in the assessment of the tumor size, which is comparable to the MRI and the final histopathological size. So what are the technical considerations that we need to have when we do a shear wave? Shear wave is a lot more operator independent compared to the strain wave, but still there are certain technical considerations that we need to follow up. As they discussed about the Stifram sign, exactly this is important, because you can't keep the FOV so small, which only including the tumor, though it measures the absolute stiffness. You may have to include the tumor and the peritumoral area. Otherwise, we would falsely interpret the lesion as normal or benign. And you also need to have a normal tissue. The FOV should be large enough to include the normal tissue to calculate the ratio. And as in strain, this also have to have the probe perpendicular to the skin without compression. And you need to wait for a few seconds before calculating all the quantitative parameters, because you should allow the system to stabilize the color display before we measure. So we need to give at least 10 seconds for the shear wave color to get stabilized before we start measuring it. And as I said, it is important that you see the shear wave in both the orthogonal planes and not just in one plane and come to a conclusion about the shear wave values. And this is largely overcome when we use a 3D linear probe. So this is the color pattern which we need to see. If this is a typically benign lesions, you can see the lesion and the surrounding parenchyma is same blue in color. It is a negative. So we know that this is what we are dealing is with a benign lesion. This is a typical Stifram sign. So the FOV is large enough to include not only the lesion, but also the peritumoral area and the surrounding normal parenchyma, so that we can know that this is the a malignant lesion that we are dealing with, and the elasticity ratio is going to be extremely high, concluding that it is a malignant lesion. But when you see these two patterns, what happens here is the same benign lesion, but if you give too much of pre-compression, it gives a sort of an aliasing. So this is an artifact. This is not real. So you will not conclude this as an abnormal lesion with or an indeterminate lesion because it has a shade of green. So you need to know that your pre-compression is more. So you need to take off the probe and keep it as gently as possible. And again, when it comes to the chest wall and also to the skin, you will see these red colors. These are again artifacts which typically arises from the skin and also from the chest wall. So you need to be aware of these artifacts when you perform a shear wave, that when it is close to the chest wall and also to the skin, if you see this red color, it is mostly artifact. And when you have this aliasing color from top till the lesion, you have to be sure that you are not compressing the lesion more, so that you start interpreting the lesion as indeterminate or even hard. So this is an example I show you. So this was a typically benign lesion. This is without any pre-compression. You can see the lesion is completely blue. The same lesion I have compressed, I have pre-compressed. You can also see that this lesion is getting distorted a bit, and now this lesion is looking very much high values, right? So it's alarmingly, it is seeing that though, okay, this is a BI-RAD 3 lesion, but we see this, so we should not jump into a conclusion that we are upgrading the BI-RAD 3 lesion into 4 because it is showing a sort of a Stifram sign or a lot of red color in it. You need to first understand that you need to take out the probe, keep it as gently as possible so that you don't furiously increase the values by giving a pre-compression. So though technically shear wave elastography is a lot more operator independent in obtaining the values, we need to remember there are certain technical parameters that we need to consider. There are certain small tips that we need to know before performing the shear wave elastography also. So this is, if you see the shear wave elastography of these two women who had lesion which are almost identical. So this is horizontally oriented circumscribed margin. This also is also horizontally oriented with circumscribed margin. But if you see the shear wave values of these two, they are very, very different, right? So this has a shear wave mean value of only 51, maximum is only 68, and you have a ratio of only 1.3. And if you see the color score is predominantly blue, but what happens here, again, this is a young patient with circumscribed margin, but what you see in elastography is a stiff rim sign. You are seeing a stiff rim sign, right? So you see the values, its mean is 285, the max is 300, and the ratio is very, very high. So they both the lesions look morphologically similar. The elastography values are way, way different, and you interpret this lesion as malignant, and you interpret this lesion as probably benign. So to sum up the shear wave elastography, we know that it measures the absolute stiffness that is expressed in meter per second or the kilopascal. Unlike the shear strain elastography, we measure the absolute stiffness, and we learned there are certain techniques in obtaining the shear wave elastography also. And apart from, in addition to the qualitative parameters that we see, which includes the color score, the ratio, the distance, we also have specific quantitative parameters that gives into large insight about what is happening about the lesion. And the three parameters which are very important, and we need to integrate all these values to come to conclusion, and this increases the specificity of our diagnosis, is Emax, E mean, and the E ratio. And we also learned, though it is a lot more operator independent, there are certain factors which will interfere with our shear wave elastography interpretation. Also, we should not have pre-compression, and we also need to know there are certain artifacts that are associated with shear wave elastography which we need to be aware of, so that we don't interpret an artifact as an abnormal value. Apart from strain and shear wave elastography, there are some intrinsic factors which affects the elastographic quality, which are lesion size, lesion depth, and the breast thickness. So what happens in both the techniques? We get a fantastic image in strain elastography if we have a small size, not so deep lesion in a thin breast. So if you have all these, we are very happy to perform a strain elastography because it gives the best image. So there are also studies which says that what are the parameters that influences shear wave elastography in giving false positive and false negative results. The conclusion was you get false positive results when you have a large size of the tumor and a very thick breast. And surprisingly, false negative results come when the lesion size is very small. But in strain, if you have a small size, you get a very good image because it is easy to compress. When you have a large image beyond the FOV, it is impossible to obtain a strain elastography because we cannot compress the lesion externally, and hence we will not be able to measure the relative stiffness. But false negative results can happen with shear wave elastography when the tumor size is very, very small, and both in strain and shear wave, when the lesion is very deep, we are not going to get a very good elastography values. So let's see, if we saw what are the parameters, what are the things that we need to measure. Let's see what are the clinical indications of elastography and how we'll apply our theory into clinical practice. So the Berg et al., the study which came in 2012, which was a multinational study of close to 1,000 patients, was a breakthrough study for elastography, wherein they had measured so many parameters, and finally they concluded that a cutoff value of 80 kilopascal was determined to distinguish benign from malignant lesions. Biret 3 masks with higher stiffness by mean, when the Emax is more than 160 and the E color is completely red with a shear wave of 180 kilopascals, could have been upgraded to biopsy. So when you have a morphologically probably benign lesion with a higher elastography value of more than 160, or when it is completely red, it's better to biopsy that lesion rather than putting the lady on follow-up. And a Biret 4A mask with low stiffness could have been downgraded to follow-up. There is no need for unnecessary biopsies. So how they deal with a Biret 4A lesion with low stiffness is by two rules. One is aggressive, other is conservative. Aggressive by mean, any lesion which has elastography score of more than 80 or only biopsy. So this increased the specificity of the biopsy. So whenever you have a really hard mass, only then you go ahead and biopsy those lesions, and rest of the lesions are put on follow-up. We have a problem of missing some cancers when you follow an aggressive policy. The conservative rule was that the cutoff was kept as 30. So they have less cancers missed, because extremely soft cancers, which are very unlikely, or only missed, and still they could maintain a reasonable higher specificity. So those two roles were put up and discussed in that study. Then when you have a score of less than 20, they say a BI-RADS 3 lesion can be downgraded to BI-RADS 2 lesion. So you put those patients from a short-term follow-up on 6 months to a regular follow-up of an annual screening. The other recommendation is short-term follow-up to a biopsy. That is a BI-RADS 3 lesion with a score of 4 or 5, or when is upgraded to 4 or 5 when they have a higher elastography score. This is very, very important in our setup, because we really can't downgrade many times a 4A lesion to 3 and put the lady on follow-up, because in our setup, we all know in our clinical practice, when you tell that lady that there is nothing to worry, at that moment she disappears. We hardly get patients who come regularly for a BI-RADS 3 follow-up. So more than downgrading the lesion of 4A to 3, this carries much more value, because you definitely are going to not miss a cancer by performing a biopsy right away, and not recommending that lady to go for a follow-up when they have a definitely high elastography score. And it increases the diagnostic confidence. So when you see a BI-RADS 4A lesion with a hard elasticity, we know that it is definitely, there is a possibility of malignancy, and we are justified in subjecting her for a biopsy. Again, when you see a fat lobule or a complicated cyst, you do not know whether you're dealing with a pseudo lesion or a real lesion. When they have a markedly soft elasticity, again, it increases our diagnostic confidence. We are not in a dilemma of whether to put her on follow-up or to leave that as a fat lobule. So these two situations, both benign and malignant, helps us when you put on the elastography. At the elastography parameters, it increases our diagnostic confidence. So to summarize this, the lesion morphology, role of elastography in lesion morphology, we have a BI-RADS 3 and a BI-RADS 4A lesion, and we have all these possibilities. The elasto can be completely benign, or elasto can be suspicious. So what do we do? For a BI-RADS 3 lesion, when the elasto is suspicious, you're going to give a BI-RADS 4 and subject her for biopsy. When it is benign, when the values are extremely low, less than 20, you can possibly downgrade her to BI-RADS 2. When 4A elasto is suspicious, you probably can upgrade them to 4B, or you're more comfortable in subjecting that lady for the biopsy. When the elasto is benign, you follow aggressive or conservative rule, and possibly can downgrade her to BI-RADS 3. Of all this is what is actually very relevant in our clinical practice in our country, because we don't miss a cancer which is presenting as a probably benign lesion, because the elasto helps us and makes a lot of difference in her life when we upgrade her and catch that cancer, not 6 months later, but at that point of time. The second application is on second look ultrasound. When you use or add a real-time shear wave to a second look ultrasound after performing or identifying an additional lesion on dynamic contrast enhanced MRI, it helps to increase the detection rate of cancers, and also help to target the cancer for ultrasound guided biopsy. So a confidence level in identifying the lesion and targeting the lesion, and not subjecting her for an MR guided biopsy, is definitely increase when you apply or add shear wave elastography feature in addition to ultrasound. So this is an example. This was a lady who presented to us with a left breast lump and a left axillary node, where you can see the mass on mammo and also on ultrasound. And this is the malignant appearing level 1 node. So because it was a lobular carcinoma on biopsy, we subjected her for MR, and you can see the additional lesion which is seen on the contralateral breast, which was not picked up on the mammogram and ultrasound in the first place. So we performed a second look ultrasound, try to target this area. There was something very indistinct, but we weren't very sure whether it is a normal gland or it is actually a lesion. But if you perform an elastography, that particular area did show increase in elastography values with lot of red colors, and the mean value was 122 and the max was 181. So this helped us to increase our diagnostic confidence. Maybe we explained the patient, maybe we would try performing a biopsy of this lesion under ultrasound. In case if it turns negative, then probably we'll subject you for an MR guided biopsy. We gave an option to her, and patient was ready to take an ultrasound guided biopsy of this lesion, and it indeed turned out to be an invasive mixed ductal lobular carcinoma. And this was the specimen ultrasound, very innocent looking, or very we are not able to differentiate between whether it is a glandular tissue or a mass, is very well seen on the specimen ultrasound. You would definitely agree that this is indeed a cancer. Response to the third application is response to neoadjuvant chemotherapy. It is actually, the study says it is comparable to MRI in predicting the response. It predicts non-responders early, even after 2 cycles of chemotherapy. It can very effectively predict the residual disease, which is also confirmed with histopathological diagnosis. And the stiffness is more related to stromal biomarkers, which are classically those non-responders. So those non-responders, when they retrospectively evaluated, found to have a higher stiffness values, and they said there is some correlation between the non-responder and a higher stiffness values to start with. So there are very interesting studies which is coming up on response to neoadjuvant chemotherapy, the role of elastography, not only 2D but also in 3D. So this is a lady who had the stiff rim sign. The pre-neoadjuvant values were around 250 for her, and this is after 2 cycles. You note not only the decrease in the size of the lesion, but also a significant decrease in the elastography color map too. So the maximum value was only 44 in this patient. So we know that even after 2 cycles, in addition to the grayscale, the shear wave also shows a change in the value, and the maximum stiffness also decreases, and you can see a lot of difference in the stiffness between the pre-neoadjuvant and even after 2 cycles of chemotherapy. The 3D shear wave elastography is a very recent evaluation for measurement of the tumor response, which is comparable to the contrast enhanced MRI. It can provide us valuable information in reduction of stiffness during treatment, which could be a potential indicator of tumor response. And because in 3D we have the visualization of the coronal plane, which is a mammo-like image, we can better assess the peritumoral stiffness rather than seeing only on a 2D image. So this is from the article which had said this. You can see on day 0, this was the elastography values, and which is showing subsequently decrease in the elastography values. And in 153rd day, you can see that the tumor also disappeared, and the color map had shifted from red to blue. So this patient had brilliantly responded to chemotherapy, and which is also reflected in the elastography, the stiffness values. If you see the value, it started with around 150 and this was around 18. If you see the same way as a non-responder, day 0 and day 56, there is not much change in the elastography values and also in the tumor size. So 3D elastography, which gives a coronal-like image, gives an overall idea about not only the volume of the tumor, how it shrinks, but also the change or no change in the stiffness values to discriminate the responder from a non-responder. The last application is prediction of molecular biology. So the triple negatives and HER2 positive tumors in studies have shown greater stiffness than the ER positive tumors. So the triple negatives, the ER negative, the PR negative, and the HER2 positive, all of them showed greater stiffness compared to the ER PR positive tumors. This had very different results in different studies. However, if you see the tumor size, histological grade, subtype, they were independent factors influencing the shear wave stiffness. So we were consistently getting higher stiffness values for higher grade tumors, though the molecular subtyping have got different or variable results in different studies. So the stiffness values can actually predict the grading of the tumor. We get a higher stiffness values for a higher grade tumor. So the principle of elastography is the same, but we actually can harvest more fruits rather than characterizing the lesion and applying these elastography technique just for mass. So this is my personal experience of application of elastography beyond masses, which is localizing the subtle architectural distortion. We can identify foci of DCIS, area of non-calcified DCIS, lobular carcinoma, use in intraductal mass in defining the extent of lesion, and help in all this, it helps to target the biopsy. So this is a lady wherein you can see this tomographic slice which shows a focal architectural distortion. This is a spot view which you can see that there is an architectural distortion in the upper outer quadrant. This was the ultrasound image in a 2D. So we actually will not know whether it is just a shadow from Cooper's ligament or it is some fibrosis, or what we see is this. The 3D image actually shows, the coronal image actually shows that little lesion with the architectural distortion like a mammo image. And we know that this is what is seen on mammo also. When you switch on the elasto, the coronal view actually shows, compared to the 2D view, you can see the coronal view actually shows the elastography much more better than we see in the other two planes. So this helps to isolate, triangulate the architectural distortion. And we did ultrasound guided biopsy for this patient, and this was a little invasive cancer on diagnosis. So this was a very young lady who presented with a clinically palpable this lump. So we straight away know that this is definitely a suspicious lesion which needs biopsy. But as I was scanning the breast, I was also seeing there was some vague non-mass hypoechoic abnormalities. They did not take the shape of the mass, but there were sheets of like abnormal areas. So this was a comparison of the opposite breast, which shows the parenchyma and the elastography values. And this was very high. We did a mammogram. She had an asymmetry which is seen in the upper outer quadrant. They are not calcified. So this was actually a small invasive cancer and an extensive non-calcified high-grade DCIS, which we can see on MRI, this little invasive cancer and the entire non-mass enhancement extending all the way up to the nipple in the outer quadrant was a non-calcified DCIS. So in DCIS versus invasive cancer, the mean stiffness values were higher when they are associated with invasive cancers in a pure DCIS-like appearance on imaging. And the qualitative assessment of shear wave using color scores correlated with the histological upgrade. So the interesting papers which says the higher the stiffness, when they have a pure DCIS, they have a relatively low stiffness values compared to DCIS associated with invasive cancer. So this was an example of a lobular carcinoma. This lady presented with a huge lymph node in the right breast, and you can see there is subtle area of focal asymmetry with architectural distortion. Again, this was a non-mass abnormality, a sheet of abnormal tissue, which increases your confidence. This was not palpable. She just presented with an enlarged lymph node, and mammo indeed show an area of abnormality. And when you switch on the elastography, you can see there is a lot of difference in the other breast and the in the abnormal breast parenchyma and the normal breast parenchyma. You can see the difference so evidently. And this was the area which was biopsied and was a lobular carcinoma. Intraductal mass. So this was again an elderly lady who presented with spontaneous nipple discharge. Mammo did show some calcifications which were pleomorphic. Other than that, there is no contribution. Her ducts was filled with blood. She was like having lot of bloody nipple discharge, and we were unsure where exactly the abnormal duct area is, which is the blood filled duct and which is the abnormal area within the ducts. So the elasto indeed helped us to localize the abnormality within one of the duct which was targeted, and this was a case of DCIS. So at the end, we saw the standard clinical applications with evidence base, and there were some more clinical applications which can be explored, which I had shared out from my clinical experience. So at the end, we will have questions, right? So can the elastography be performed or interpreted in isolation? So this will never be done. Elastography always is with B mode and the morphological features, and it is never performed in isolation. So whenever you perform elastography, you will have a standard dual mode, wherein on one side you will have the B mode display, and the other side you will have the elastography, which can be strain or shear wave. So some people will have shear wave and some people will have a strain. So which is better? Still now there are no clear studies which had said that one type of elastography is superior to the other. However, in shear wave is relatively not non-operator dependent, and we can have absolute values which are used in different clinical situations. So can Biret 4B, C and 5 can be downgraded based on elastography. So this should not be done. Just because a speculated mass is not showing a higher elastography score, we will never downgrade a lesion. So the elastography is only up to 4A to have a clinical influence. For a 4B, 4C and 5, morphology trumps, and we will not change the interpretation based on elastography. The final recommendation of 4B, 4C and Biret 5 lesions are only with morphology, and we will not change our Biret categorization if the elastography is softer in these patients. So when should and when should not elastography be used? So whenever you have a mass, we can use elastography, and certain difficult situations wherein we can help to triangulate those non-mass abnormality too. When it should not be used? When the lesion, both strain and shear, when it is within 3 millimeter from the skin, the elastography will influence, will have a spuriously high values, because we don't, that amount of redness will have a spill over the lesion, and hence our interpretation will not be right. So if it is very, very superficial, we will not apply elastography. And in strain elastography, when the size of the lesion is too big than the area of region of interest, we cannot apply strain elastography in those situations, because strain measures relative stiffness, and we need to include the tumor and also the surrounding normal parenchyma. So too big a lesion, it is very difficult to use elastography. Is there a limitation of elastography? Yes, we saw when they are very thicker breast, when they are very close to chest wall, when they are very superficial, elastography cannot be applied. When they are too big in strain, so these are the limitations of elastography. It is not a modality without limitation. It does have, but when you use it in the proper clinical situation, it definitely helps us to increase our specificity. So this is a very good paper which talks about what are the recommendations that is approved for performing elastography, both shear wave and strain. It also describes about the basic techniques. To summarize, we need to understand the basic principle of the system, because in strain elastography, the way that we compress or give a strain to the system varies from the vendors. So you need to understand the basic principle of the system, and also you need to realize that there is a learning curve in acquisition and interpretation. So you need to follow all those technical tips that so that we don't perform it wrong and interpret it wrong. It does have a learning curve. So first of all, to understand how gentle to keep the probe on the patient definitely has a learning curve. And you need to be aware of the artifacts when it is very closer to the skin and chest wall, when you have very abnormal results because you are doing a lot of compression on shear wave. So all these things you need to be aware, and you shouldn't interpret it as positive results. You need to know no compression, avoid skin and chest wall in your area of interest, because they will have some abnormal values. And you need to assess the B mode image quality before interpretation. So also you need to know how is the quality. So certain strain elastography have got a display quality parameter wherein your compression is adequate or inadequate. So you need to know the image quality before you start interpreting those images, both in B mode and also in elastography mode. So always elastography is combined with the B mode findings. It is never interpreted in isolation to give the final Birets. And also remember, in 4B and C, elastography values is not going to change the way you interpret the final image. It is there, the morphology trumps. It helps in mass characterization. It also improves your specificity in characterizing the lesion into 3 and 4A. It detects the invasive component in DCIS, because in DCIS the stiffness is pretty much low compared to DCIS and invasive cancer. It helps in targeting the biopsy in second ultrasound, thereby increasing our specificity and also cost effectiveness to the patient. It can predict molecular biology, and both 2D and 3D elastography are comparable to dynamic contrast enhanced MRI in predicting the treatment response, but it definitely has many more potential clinical applications beyond all this mass applications which needs to be explored. Thank you.
Hello, Rupa, can you hear me? I'm Dr. Pratibha.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello, very nice and informative presentation. I
Thank
think
you.
that even during the E strain, so we have to take into consideration the lesion as well as the surrounding parenchyma in the same view, as you told.
Correct. Yeah.
Same time when we are putting the ROE, so the ROI is at the same depth in the lesion as well as in normal parenchyma to get the exact E value.
Exactly. If you have to measure the ratio, the ROI should be kept in the lesion and the second ROI should be in the normal parenchyma. So how will you detect which is normal? You will also see the color scale because the tumor and the immediate peritumoral area will not be considered as normal parenchyma. So where the color display is completely blue, you have to put your ROI there, assuming that that area is normal to calculate the ratio.
Both the ROI, they should be at the same from the skin.
Not level, they shouldn't be in the same, it's preferably in the same level. We don't put it very superficially. It's preferably in the same level. Yeah, you're right.
Otherwise, you'll get the difference because the pressure difference that will be there. So
Exactly. Yeah, the ratio can be falsely low when you put the ROI close to the skin in the normal breast parenchyma. It's preferably in the same level. Yeah, it shouldn't be very close to the skin because wherein you will see some amount of increased elastography values of the normal tissue because some amount of compression will still be exhibited on the parenchyma, which is immediately beneath the skin.
Okay, and I've got one more question. You said that for the hormonal assay, that this triple negative and the HER2 positive, they both are having high stiffness. So
Correct.
about the HER2 positive, is okay. The HER2 positive as well as luminal B, they can have the high stiffness. Triple negative, it is not digestible. Means how they have explained it. Like triple negative tumors, they are hyper intense. So they have a more of a cystic component as compared to the HER2 positive
Not
tumors.
necessarily they are cystic, they can have increased cellularity. That is why, though they are morphologically appearing to be circumscribed masses, you do get very high values, which I showed you a previous example. That lady was a triple negative cancer, which had presented as a probably benign lesion on morphology. Indeed, she had a stiff limb sign wherein her elastography of 300. But you have two controversial results in the characterization, the stiffness elastography values in correlation with the molecular subtyping. But both the studies have compared the grading of the tumor and the molecular subtyping. Both of them had consistently said higher the grade of the tumor, higher the stiffness. It is considered as an independent parameter to assess the grade of the tumor. But one study had concluded that there is a definite correlation between the stiffness values and the molecular subtyping. The other study which said that there is grading are correlating, but the molecular subtyping are not correlating. So we still do not have a definitive study or multiple studies which had said that there is a correlation between stiffness and molecular subtyping. There are only two big studies I had come across. So maybe we have many more things to explore with elastography. Is there any more questions?
Rupa, there are a number of questions. I'll just take it one by one. One question is to explain strain elastography because they couldn't hear that portion clearly. Can you just briefly explain strain elastography?
Okay.
Strain elastography is something which is very equivalent to clinical palpation. So you give an external pressure, either by a small vibration or an RF or by an external compression. So what we see is how stiffer that particular lesion is in comparison to the normal parenchyma. So we don't get an absolute stiffness value of the lesion in strain. We get the relative stiffness of the value, relative stiffness value of that particular lesion in comparison to the normal parenchyma. So there are three parameters that we look in strain elastography. One is the color score. So that is, 1 will be completely soft, 2 and 3 will be having a mixture of colors, so it is interpreted as indeterminate, and 4 and 5 are they are completely hard. What is the difference between the color score 4 and 5 is 4, the lesion is completely hard and it is suspicious. 5, not only the lesion but the surrounding tissue also takes up the color completely, and so in elastography map you see that lesion is apparently bigger compared to the B mode ultrasound, so you give a score of 5. So 4 and 5 are considered suspicious. This is with color score. Other is the EB ratio. E stands for elastography, B stands for the B mode. So you measure the lesion in B mode and also in elastography mode, and then you calculate EB ratio. Any ratio which is more than 1, which means the lesion is appearing bigger on elastography compared to the B mode, you're going to call that lesion as suspicious. If the lesion appears the same in B mode and elastography mode, the ratio is 1 or less than 1, you're going to call that lesion as benign. The third parameter that we measure is the strain ratio, wherein you draw an ROI, something like what we saw in shear wave, which is very similar. You draw an ROI in the lesion and also into the adjacent normal parenchyma, you calculate a ratio. So anything which is above 3 is suspicious. When it is 6.28, it is going to be malignant. When it is around 2, you're calling it as benign. So these three parameters that we see on strain elastography.
Is there, there's another question which has come in. It seems that shear wave elastography is more sensitive than strain elastography. What is it that you find in the practice, Dr.
I had used strain elastography till 2016, and from 2016 till date, I'm using a shear wave elastography. So I feel shear wave elastography is more convincing because we get the values and we know that this what you're dealing with malignant. So in strain, there is lot of operator dependence is there. We need to always check whether our compression is adequate by checking the quality map. Though the pre-compression, we will get used to it. So the compression or the strain that is exhibited on the lesion has to be consistent. So the operator dependence is little more on a strain. And shear wave, I feel the learning curve, there is practically no learning curve. You just have to understand there are some artifacts and you should not have a pre-compression. So shear wave is much more easier to learn, and there are much more convincing values and quantitative parameters that we can assess. This is my experience, but there are papers which had compared shear wave elastography and strain elastography, and till date, no one had said that shear wave is superior or strain is superior. There are certain small limitations in both the study, but if you ask me, I'm more comfortable with the shear wave elastography.
Yeah. The other one is, another question is, should we rely on mean shear wave value or maximum KPA?
That is what I said. So the E mean, max, and ratio. So initially they said E ratio was the most discriminative parameter way back in studies 2013. Then there were studies around 2015. They said, you know, E mean is actually influenced by the size of the ROI, because within the ROI, if you have different areas which are soft and which are harder, then your E mean value drops. But E max is independent of the ROI. Even if there is a single point which is going to be having the highest value, so E max is going to tell that. So there were such studies which said that E max is much more reliable. But the last study which had come in 2017 analyzing what are the important quantitative parameters, and they have analyzed by assessing the specificity by seeing every single parameter. They finally concluded that E max mean ratio, if you incorporate all three, it actually increases the specificity much more than using a single value.
Another question is, for getting Q ratio, is it mandatory to keep both ROI at same depth? Which is the optimum ROI size?
Optimum ROI size is between 2 to 3 millimeter. And ideally, I answered the question before. The ROI ideally has to be in the same. Because if it's slightly on upper or lower doesn't matter, but it shouldn't be close to the chest wall wherein we have not given enough, the shear wave have not penetrated much, and it should never be close to the skin. When it is close to the skin, the normal parenchyma is going to have a little higher value, and hence that will influence the ratio. The ratio will fall down. So we should ideally have it in the same plane.
Another question is, what is the 3D linear probe that you're using? It's one question which is coming.
The 3D linear probe that we are using is from Supersonic. I think you should answer that, Mr. Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. Another one is, any role in assessing lymph node?
There are mixed results on lymph nodes, and if you ask my experience, I have not get consistent results with the lymph nodes. But there are papers on lymph nodes, and similar to the elastography scores in strain, also there is a score for axillary node elastography. It has some role, but it has definitely not picked up so well like for characterizing the masses. I don't rely on that because I have not seen consistent results on application of elastography on lymph nodes.
Okay. Another question is, if lesion has absolute benign features, if one elastography borderline raised, if you decide not to biopsy, need 6-12 follow-up, or can discharge, 2 elastography significantly raised, 100% need biopsy to exclude malignancy.
Can you please come again in that question? Yeah, if the lesion has got absolute morphological feature, elastography is borderline. Elastography is borderline. We have to discuss with the patient. If the elastography is significantly raised, that is where I'm saying we have got a definite role, because we know that not all breast cancers have got morphologically suspicious imaging features. There are well circumscribed breast cancers like triple negative, medullary, mucinous. So we have a long list of well circumscribed cancers. So that is why, though the probability of malignancy is only 2%, but still we do have cases wherein the morphologically benign appearing lesion had suspicious elastography and we had biopsied them. Even a BI-RAD 3 lesion, if the patient is not willing for follow-up, we are justified in biopsying it. Even without elastography. Otherwise, I'm talking. If the patient says that I cannot wait for 6 months, I would like to undergo a biopsy, we are justified in doing a biopsy. So we are definitely justified in doing a biopsy when we have a suspicious elastography scores. I think we should biopsy them.
Is there any other questions? Any of you? I mean, you can possibly unmute the phone and ask questions to your delegates. I mean, another one is there a role of shear wave in complex or complicated cystic lesions? Does it aid specifically?
Does it
aid specificity?
Cysts are characterized by morphological features. If there is a complex cystic lesion, which we call it as not complex cystic, which is complex solid cystic lesion, that is a BI-RAD 4. It is not even a 4A. So we will definitely go ahead and biopsy that, irrespective of the elastography features.
Okay, Dr. Namita, you have a question. I mean, can you open the mic and ask Dr. Namita? I mean, I think she's... she wants to know what is the recommended ROI size, which I think you mentioned.
I have said it's between.
And you mentioned between 1 to 3. Please also tell which ROI size is best when measuring stiff rim.
The same, 2 to 3 mm.
Okay.
2 to 3 mm, yeah.
Okay. Another question has come: within a lesion, where exactly to keep the ROI? Dr. Radha wants to.
Actually, within the lesion, maximum is what we need to know, right? So when the display color, where the display color is red, that is going to tell guide us to know where exactly to place the ROI. If you keep the ROI, because the tumor is heterogeneous, there will be some necrotic areas where there will be some active tumor cells. So necrotic areas may not take up tumor cells, may not take up elastography, and and when we have a stiff rim, the center is not going to take up color. So we need to put it where it is completely red, highly malignant, so that we get the maximum score.
Yeah. Dr. Nitin Chaubal, thanks for logging in, sir. I mean, he has a question. What ratios do you take shear wave value? What are the cutoff?
The ratio of 5 is said for shear wave as possibly suspicious lesions, but most of the time we have a ratio like 20, 30, 60. So we really have not faced a situation wherein only the ratio that we have to decide. But the ratio above 5 is considered as abnormal.
Is there any gel of elasto in inflammatory CA? That's another question which has come.
Any help of elasto in inflammatory cancers? Yeah, whenever you find a small primary or a non-mass area, I found elastography in my clinical practice a lot more useful in identifying those lesions, especially when they're presenting as non-mass abnormalities. Yeah.
Besides breast lesions, what are the uses of the 3D probe? 3D linear probe.
Can be used in musculoskeletal applications too.
Yes, musculoskeletal issues. Yes, musculoskeletal.
I think that's a question for you,
yes.
Mr. Paul.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Dr. Rupa is a breast radiologist. Besides using for breast, we also use for musculoskeletal applications right now. What about lesion along scar to rule out recurrence? It's another question, doctor.
There is a very interesting study which also had said that elastography values are much higher in tumor recurrence rather than fibrosis. But I personally have not have faced such a situation, so I don't have a personal experience. But there is a very interesting study on that too.
Okay. There's another question from Dr. Lililai. I think probably you answered part of the question earlier. What is the cutoff? Is the cutoff at 80 kilopascals based on Emax or E mean? The first question. And second is, what's the cutoff value for E ratio?
Yeah, the Emax is what they considered and not the E mean. And the cutoff was 5, which I already answered.
Yeah.
The study that the Berg et al. Study was, the cutoff was for with Emax, not for E mean.
I think we come to the end of the questions. Thank you, Dr. Rupa. It was this very wonderful presentation, very informative on not only the technique, but right from the principle, technique, applications, and the amount of case studies that you presented. Thank you so much for being part of us and taking this initiative to come and present. Thanks everyone for joining in right from far out Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam. I mean, thank you so much. Your timeline must be 9:30, 10. You must be about to hit bed. Thank you so much for finding time to join us. We will be coming out with a series of more webinars, and even this webinar we'll be recording and putting it on the YouTube for you to watch. Thanks once again, everyone. If nobody has a question, we can sign off. Have a great weekend. And see you soon.
Everyone who across the Asia and even from France who had registered and attended. Thank you so much.